Uncle Dan.
Oui, monsieur.
Bye, French listeners. Au revoir.
It does seem like our current reality is shitty. But I think we can be comforted by reality. Right, exactly. We can be comforted by the fact that pretty much every other time in history was also shitty.
Yeah.
Does that make you feel better?
Possibly shittier.
Possibly
Strange.
shittier.
Possibly. I feel like right now is giving the olden times a run for its money, but but even with all this, we still live in the most peaceful time in human history. So think about that.
Just for the next at least a couple days, we live in the most peaceful time. It does seem to be threatening to lose that title, but
yes.
Okay, we'll say that.
Yeah, it's sunny with a chance of apocalypse.
Right.
Yeah, we never know what's going to happen between the time we record this and you hear it. So
yeah, exactly. Well, let's explore a time long ago, shall we, fellas?
Yes, please.
And there's never been a bad time to be a Catholic, like ever. Whether you were a woman or a queer person or an astronomer or just a peculiar old lady who lived alone and was fond of cats. Since St. Paul, formerly Saul of Tarsus, said to himself, "There's got to be a way to monetize all this madness and use it as a political cudgel to crush my enemies," it's been one sunny summer day for more than 2,000 years. Right, fellas?
Easy breezy.
Well, it turns out it's never been a bad time to be a Catholic, even for wealthy, privileged, and connected Catholic clergy as well. Well,
Weird.
except for this one time. Follow me, if you will, to the tranquility of Loudun, France, in the sleepy 4th decade of the 17th century. And by tranquility, I mean a nation in turmoil with the Protestant Huguenot revolts, the constant crisis and palace intrigues and instabilities of the Louis, and a continent in the midst of the 30 Years' War. Tranquil. And it is this provincial but apparently quite nice little town of Loudun, France, in the years of 1632 to 1634, that is the stage for today's gruesome drama, that of Father Urbain Grandier and the Devils of Loudun. I first became aware of this story when a friend showed a 19-year-old me the very fucked up and conceptual 1971 Ken Russell film version of this dreadful moment in history, and it rattled me. I was a very sensitive young guy who was working on horror movies before I'd really seen any because I found them too scary. and while it's not a horror movie in the classic sense, it's very disturbing. And as far as I can tell, it cleaves pretty damn close to the known facts of the incident. We watched this on Halloween one year, guys. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Was I there?
Yeah. Remember Heretics?
I don't think I was there.
You were there. Anyway. You were there. Anyway, born into a wealthy family in 1590, Urbain Grandier entered the priesthood at a young age and was appointed by his influential uncle to be the parish priest of Loudun. And also, he was appointed to a more powerful position as canon of the Collegiate Church of St. Croix, ahead of several more elder, more qualified, but less connected candidates. He was also
I want that position, the position of canon.
Yeah, he was a canon.
That's
Nobody
awesome.
knows what that means. He was also something most priests then and now are not. He was young, very good-looking, highly educated, well-spoken, and apparently fun in an irreverent way, and also a social climber. Having replaced a gray, cruel, rickety old priest, the people of the town were excited by Grandier's energy and his wit, most especially the ladies of the town with whom he flirted maybe a little too openly. In fact, Grandier wrote an entire book inveighing against the unnatural and forced celibacy that priests had to endure for their whole lives. This turned more than a few heads, well beyond Loudun, including in Rome and Paris. One such head it turned was one you wouldn't want to turn all the way round to notice you, that belonging to Cardinal Armand Jean de Plessis, also known as Eminence Rouge, but best known to history as Cardinal Richelieu. Yes... He's the villain of the Three Musketeers.
Yeah.
If Father Grandier was a cheeky monkey of a social climber, Cardinal Richelieu was King Kong. By the years in question, he had not only achieved the rank of cardinal within the Catholic Church, but had survived loads of attempts on his position and even his life in the stabby snake pit of the French royal court to rise not only to chief minister of King Louis XIII, but also First Minister of State, Governor of Brittany, Grand Master of the Navigation, Secretary of State for Foreign Affairs, and Secretary of War.
I love these titles.
I know. I want to be Grand Master of the Navigation, which would be awesome because I get seasick looking at a picture of the ocean. So quite the resume. After the king, Richelieu was the most powerful person in France, and some argue that he was indeed more powerful than the young king himself. So Richelieu looks around France, sees overly powerful regional nobility with their armies and their fortifications, sees those pesky, seditious heretics, the Huguenots, occupying some of those same fortifications, sees all of it as a threat to the crown, to the church, and himself, and decides that's enough of that shit. So the order is given to have the bulk of those walls and castles torn down, centralizing the authority of the crown as the only legitimate legal and military power in the country, and obviously that of the church as well. So among those that resisted this order was Father Grandier. He didn't join in the anti-Protestant fervor of most of his co-religionists of the day, and kind of radically wanted to get along and even protect the Huguenots of Loudun. This greatly irked Richelieu, who made his displeasure known. Grandier's response was to write a satirical poem skewering the imperious Richelieu for his pretensions to power. This, it turns out, was to be a terrible mistake on Grandier's part.
Yeah.
So
that's like writing that's like thinking that you can beat Trump by pissing him off.
Yeah. You just don't want to get involved with that.
Just going to make an enemy for life, and he's so dumb he might actually do some damage.
It's right. So in addition to being a little too arrogant for such a dangerous time and too charming for his own good, Grandier went beyond the flirting mentioned above. He's believed to have fathered more than one child with different women, including the daughter of one of his closest allies, Louis Tricant, the public prosecutor of Loudun. This infuriated his friend, who joined the growing list of Grandier's enemies. He even approached the young daughter of a powerful local nobleman and convinced her to marry him, infuriating not only the family, but a guy named Pierre Menoir, who had been wooing her for years, who also happened to be directly connected to King Louis XIII personally. So
Oops.
Grandier was arrested. This whole crazy proceeding took place. It looked really bad for him. But when push came to shove, the case fell apart when the accusations were recanted because the families of the unwed mothers decided the shame would be too great to come forward. So he got lucky, but he got cocky. His luck did not last. There was a small, unimportant convent of Ursuline nuns in Loudun, and from all evidence, it seems the Mother Superior, one Jeanne d'Agnes, had become obsessed with the handsome, dangerously transgressive Grandier. Now remember, just because priests and nuns take vows of celibacy doesn't mean they aren't sexual creatures with all sorts of fantasies and desires. Any passing familiarity with the Catholic Church in the past decades proves that in the worst possible way.
Right.
So she asked him to become the confessor for her small clutch of nuns. He declined abruptly, saying he was too busy and refusing to even visit the convent in person. So spurned and jilted, she smoldered. It seems Agnes made her sexual dreams and nightmares about Grandier known to the man who filled the post at the convent Grandier had refused, one Father Mignon. He himself, one of the many local despisers of Grandier. Mignon decided it was witchcraft perpetrated by the philandering priest. The young, isolated, and fearful nuns under Agnes began admitting to their own nocturnal supernatural visits from Grandier in an increasing hysteria, very much like the events that led up to the Salem witch trials.
Huh. Interesting.
So, Grandier's enemies pounced, including Richelieu, of course, and he dispatched one of his lieutenants and a relative of Mother Superior Jeanne d'Agnes, a guy called, I'm so sorry, French people, what's about to happen, a guy called Jean de la Bardemont, it's like 40 words long, 40 letters long, to investigate, but really to railroad Grandier and rid him of that infernal priest. So the exorcisms of the Ursuline sisters of Loudun became something of a public spectacle, with each performance necessarily needing to top the last.
Right.
Grandier, it suddenly and erroneously seemed, had fucked them all in person and in spirit with the help of and in the presence of demons. The poor man's goose was cooked. The Inquisitor...
What really sucks about that is that he didn't even get to actually fuck them. At least if he had
Not one of
gone,
them.
he
Not
could have
one of
actually gotten some tail out of it, some sweet Ursuline tail out of it.
Doesn't want some Ursuline tail. So the Inquisitor de Laubardemont bore papers from Richelieu barring anyone to appeal or any civil judge or authority from interfering with his kangaroo court. As part of the proceedings, a ridiculously absurd document was produced called the Diabolical Pact. Written backwards in Latin, this stupid piece of superstitious garbage sealed Grandier's fate, but such were the standards of evidence in this benighted age. It reads as follows. We, the influential Lucifer, the young Satan, Beelzebub, Leviathan, Elimi, Astaroth, together with others, have today accepted the covenant pact of Urbain Grandier, who is ours. And him we do promise the love of women, the flower of virgins, the respect of monarchs, honors, lusts, and powers. He will go whoring 3 days long. The carousal will be dear to him. He offers us once in the year a seal of blood. Under the feet he will trample the holy things of the church. He will ask us many questions. With this pact he will live 20 years happy on the earth of men, and will later join us to sin against God. Bound in hell, the council of demons. Signed, Lucifer, Beelzebub, Satan, Astaroth, Leviathan, Elimi. The seals placed the devil, the master, and the demons, princes of the Lord. Balberith, writer.
Okay. I think we're gilding the lily just a little bit with this thing.
Yeah,
it's love it. While you were talking, I looked this document up.
You saw a picture. It's hilarious.
It's gorgeous. I love it. It's so stupid. And
it's like a kid would write it for a Halloween haint, a scary thing with crayon, right? The signatures are hysterical. I'll post a picture of it. So his sentence was read out and is recorded for history, and that is as follows. We have ordered and do order the said Urbain Grandier duly tried and convicted of the crime of magic, maleficia, and of causing demoniacal possession of several Ursuline nuns of this town of Loudun, as well as of other secular women, together with other charges and crimes resulting therefrom. For atonement of which we have condemned and do condemn this said Grandier to make, I don't know how exactly you say this, amende honorable, his head bare, a rope around his neck, holding in his hand a burning taper weighing 2 pounds. That seems important.
How much does the candle weigh, though? How much?
Before the principal door of the church of Saint-Pierre du Marché, and before that of Saint Ursula of this town, there on his knees to ask pardon of God, the king and the law. This done, he is to be taken to the public square of Saint Croix and fastened to a stake on a scaffold which shall be erected on the said place for this purpose, and there to be burned alive, and his ashes scattered to the wind. We have ordered and do so order that each and every article of his movable property be acquired and confiscated by the king, the sum of 500 livres, first being taken for buying a bronze plaque, so they're going to do some decorating, on which will be engraved the abstract of this present trial, to be set up in a prominent spot in the said church of the Ursulines, to remain there for all eternity.
Wow.
Okay. And before...
go ahead, sorry.
Well, it's almost done. And before proceeding to the execution of the present sentence, we order the said Grandier to be submitted to the first and the last degrees of torture concerning his accomplices. How would you like to be standing before the judge and hear that, guys?
Well, I love that it goes on a little bit of a journey.
Yeah.
Because the first third of it is like, okay, you're going to have to get on your knees and say you're sorry. Yeah. You were a bad boy. And you got to think he's like, okay, I could do that.
Yeah.
No problem. And then it takes a turn.
Yeah, he knew what was coming. So,
yeah.
This is going to get...
By the way, you don't feel very motivated to do the whole... get on your knees and ask forgiveness thing when you know what's coming afterwards, regardless of what you do.
Right.
Like at that point, I would never get on. I would be like, you get to see my middle fingers forever now.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to get motivated after that sentence, but yeah. So this is going to get gruesome. Be warned. He was fastened to a board with his legs laid in immovable planks. De Laubardemont and his torturers carefully exorcised all the implements of torture so the demons could not ease Grandier's pain.
Oh, that's
then
nice.
set to work pounding wedges between the planks in his legs, shattering his leg bones.
Oh, my God.
After each blow, he was given the opportunity to confess, which he would not. After 45 minutes or so, something called the Spanish boot was fastened to his ankle and foot. Think of it as like it's kind of an iron ski boot full of spikes that's also a vice. And after being made red hot in the fire, it's cranked down on the body until it totally shatters the bones and destroys the flesh. He was then ordered to be put to what the court called the extraordinary question, where the mouth is wedged open and gallons of water are forced down the throat. Think of waterboarding, but with a fire hose. So, despite these agonies, he never confessed because, of course, he couldn't. He didn't use demons to possess these women. That's not a thing, for fuck's sake. So, and what good would confessing do him? They weren't going to let him off the hook.
Exactly.
So, he might as well have that last bit of integrity before the grave.
Yeah.
So they dragged him in a donkey cart to the square where his enemies were seated in a VIP grandstand, congratulating each other and celebrating with wine. As his legs and feet were pulp, he was unable to stand, so he was tied to the stakes, seated on an iron chair. In the humane standards of the day, he was going to be strangled prior to the fire. He kept trying to speak, but the priest threw water in his face and smashed him in the mouth with an iron crucifix, so he couldn't. As a last act of mean girl barbarity, the executioner found the inquisitors had tied the customary strangling rope in knots, preventing him from administering a slightly more humane murder. And then they lit the pyre before he could improvise another garrote. So a very conscious Grandier screamed until the fire filled his lungs, to the horror, shock, and delight of the 30,000 assembled witnesses.
Oh, wow.
His enemies in the VIP section sang and toasted their success in framing this problematic but ultimately innocent man. The appearance of a large black fly buzzing around the condemned's head confirmed for his murderers that he was indeed guilty, as it was surely Beelzebub, Lord of the Flies. That's his actual title.
There you go.
As gruesome and unjust as this horror was, philosopher Michel de Certeau believes it marked a key milestone for the emergence of Europe out of the medieval period and toward the Enlightenment. It was one of the last and certainly one of the most high-profile trials for witchcraft in France, and even those that were ambivalent about Grandier saw it as a farce and a miscarriage of justice. Add to that many of the nuns recanted during and after the trial, including, shockingly, the Mother Superior. And it's speculated now, as it was even at the time, that the silly diabolical pact I read to you a minute ago was in Agnes's own very particular handwriting. So I haven't read the 1952 Aldous Huxley nonfiction novel about this nightmare called The Devils of Loudun. But as I mentioned before, the 1971 film, The Devils, based on Huxley's book, is pretty bananas. And like I said, seems to track with what's known about these events, despite being a little conceptual and psychedelic. Not a family film, just FYI, if you're interested in watching. So that's it, guys. I guess it's a cautionary tale about being too pretty, pissing off powerful people, and a reminder that church-state separation and impartial, non-corrupt judicial systems are good things. So we should try to keep those, or establish them, depending on where you stand.
I feel like you've left the main question unanswered, which is the plaque still around?
I know.
It's supposed to be there for forever.
I didn't think to look that up. It may be. I don't know if the convent is still there, but yeah,
there you
it'd
go.
Just be cray.
That was fun.
Yeah. So there you go, everybody.
I saw Sister Proctor with the devil. Let's move
burn on.
Let's move on.